Today we're sitting down with the one and only Amos. G'day everyone, welcome to episode number 6 of Influence. Today we've got a very special guest. Every guest is very special here on Influence. Today we've got Amos. Amos, how you going?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Austin?
Good. How's your day been?
Yeah, not bad. So I'm from Adelaide, and I'm going to be in Adelaide for 3 weeks. I landed from Wollongong on Saturday, and this is the longest stretch I've been home since February. So I've been on the road all year. Good to be back.
Nice. We're going to jump straight into it. Do you want to give an introduction of what your role is? I won't spoil any of it. I want you to be able to reveal everything. But yeah, brief introduction. Who is Amos?
Yeah, cool. No problems. So my name's Amos. I'm 22 years old. I live in the Adelaide Hills with my family. I went to school in Mount Barker, I went to Cornerstone College, and I'm actually a University of Adelaide student, although I'm currently deferred this year because I am the Australian Youth Representative to the United Nations for 2018.
Very nice.
Which is a really exciting role. So what my role involves is it involves travelling around the country on a 6-month listening tour. So I spend roughly 2 weeks in every state and territory, working with young people in schools, universities, TAFEs, community groups, organisations, some juvenile detention centres, working with young people and collecting their perspectives.
Yep.
So far, we're filming this in early July, and I've conducted 105 consultations all around the country.
Jeez.
We've still got more to go. I'm continuing this part of my role until late August. I then travel to the United Nations in New York City, where I'll work there on behalf of young Australians for 6 weeks. And I'll deliver a speech at the United Nations General Assembly in New York City. And what's really cool about this program is what I hear during the consultations in my listening tour directly impacts what I put in my speech at the UN General Assembly. Once I come back from the UN, I will go into report back phase. So I will write a report that summarises my findings for the year and provide some recommendations to the government and to Australia's leaders on how we can best move forward. So what I think is particularly special about this program, about this role, is that it's a role that's exclusively for people under the age of 25. So if you are under the age of 25 and an Australian citizen, you can apply for this position, and it's annually appointed. And I think that's really important because this is actually the largest entirely youth-led consultation of young people in the country. And I think it's really important that we have a consultative process that actually has young people behind the scenes.
Yeah, definitely.
So every young volunteer, and I'm a volunteer myself, behind the scenes in this program, working to make it work well, all under the age of 25.
That's great. Yeah, that's basically what our whole talk today is going to be revolved around, is the influence of youth on society and also in terms of their political say and other things around that. Cool. But going into that role, did you just jump straight into it? You're born, grew up, and then they're like, yeah, we want you for this position. What was that middle phase?
Yeah, not quite.
Involved with UN before that?
Yeah, good question. I was involved with United Nations Youth. So I got involved with UN Youth, which is the organisation that administers the Youth Rep program, since I was 16 years old, so in year 11, in 2012. I got involved with UN Youth programs when I was in high school. I just kind of fell in love with the work that UN Youth does, but particularly with the Youth Representative program. So I remember hearing from the Youth Representative when I was in high school. I stayed involved with UN Youth, served on UN Youth SA's executive as Education Director for 2 years and as their regional officer. But the thing that I was most passionate about was the Youth Representative program. So one of the first things I did as a young volunteer in first year uni was to help coordinate the 2014 Youth Representatives visit to South Australia. Right. So I took the 2014 Youth Rep, Laura John, to Kangaroo Island, which was a really great experience. One of my first sort of big volunteering events that I'd actually coordinated myself. And it feels really special that I've kind of come full circle for me. I put my hand up for the role in August of last year, and it was a really grueling process. But as someone who's been familiar with the program for years and has helped to run it in South Australia, I had an understanding of what kind of tasks are required and what kind of work is needed in the program. So I'm delighted to be this year's youth representative. It's July, and I don't think it's really sunk in yet.
Yeah, highly competitive?
I think so. I think so. What I've heard is that around 60 to 65 other candidates applied for the role last year. It is a huge commitment. So it's actually a full-time volunteer role. So I do receive some funding from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade to support my trip to the UN, so flights and accommodation. But as I explained before, I'm on the road almost all year. So I rely on the support of the community and from small donations and sponsors in order to pay for things like food, clothes, public transport, phone bills, and also, of course, things like that contribute to the delivery of the program, like flights and things like that.
And why is it important for young people to have a say in today's world? We shift it. We've heard the bit of the backstory. Youth today, some may say that there isn't enough say. Why do you think it's important that they have more and they be involved more in society and how culture operates?
Yeah, good question. And it's kind of the question that I've been wanting to answer this year. So every year the youth representative has a different guiding question. And this year mine is, what would Australia look like if young people had a greater say? And I have a feeling, I know that Australia would be a much better place if young people were involved more. But I want to know the specifics of that. I want to know more from young people what the hopes, dreams and visions are for the future. So that's why I'm talking with young people. And I have spoken with young people from all walks of life. So I go to inner city schools, both public and private. I've been to regional university campuses. I've been to 4 juvenile detention centres. And it's, I see common threads throughout my experiences, but I also see a rich diversity in Australia, amongst Australian young people. And I think that we don't always understand the complexities of the issues facing young people. But I also think, however, that youth issues are community issues. So many of the issues that affect young people are issues that affect the broader community too. But I speak to young people about this in particular, and so many young people talk to me about the different experiences they have. So, for example, mental health is an issue that affects people of all ages. So that's a youth issue, but it's also a community issue. But young people are experiencing that issue in a different way, in lots of different ways. So, for example, plenty of young people are still forging their identities. And we're at a critical time of our lives when we're growing up and we're learning who we are. What we want to do with our lives, and also how we see ourselves. And that is naturally going to interact with your well-being, naturally.
Yeah, naturally.
As you can imagine. Likewise, being in the context of being someone who is still learning and studying, perhaps might not have a formal qualification yet, that has an impact on your well-being and what kind of services you need and what kind of help you need provided to you. So in that sense, if we're not listening to young people, then how on earth can we get the full picture of mental health or of really any other community issue?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's something that I've seen emerging a lot more since I've been in high school. There is a bit more consideration for the students now, especially in years 11 and 12. There's kind of that, although it's on a much more of a micro scale, there is that more consideration for what you want going on in the school community. There is that feedback and that relaying of ideas. And I couldn't imagine in the world, ideally a world I want is one where there's, everyone's opinions are incorporated. And I think a big part of that and a big debate has been lowering the voting age. I just want to highlight that quickly. I've heard that it could be, it's been debated whether it would go down to 16. And then from there, it's either compulsory, or do you think it should be voluntary? If people under 16 are willing to vote, do you think it should be voluntary or compulsory?
That's a really good question, and it's actually a question that I ask young people, excuse me, in almost every consultation. So I ask young people what their thoughts are on this particular issue. And my report at the end of the year will probably provide a recommendation. I find my opinion on this particular issue less important than the perspectives that I am hearing. But I will say that there does seem to be an appetite for optional voting for 16 and 17-year-olds. Certainly less so compulsory voting. Certainly less so. But I am hearing from a lot of people, young people, who feel as though it's a good way of ensuring that young people are going to be engaged more and by politicians, that politicians are going to see young people as active participants. I hear that argument a lot. And also that, as I explained before about youth issues and community issues, a lot of young people who advocate for that believe that, why on earth wouldn't we let 16 and 17-year-olds participate in the electoral process? What are the reasons why? I hear a lot of reasons against lowering the voting age from young people. Some young people do genuinely feel as though they just aren't mature enough to engage in politics in that way. Certainly not every young person's telling that, but some people are. That being said, those young people then tend to proceed to give me some really, really nuanced explanations of some complex community issues. But it's a complex question, a complex issue. And it seems as though there's no huge consensus just yet from my findings, but I could certainly say at this stage that there is an appetite for making it optional.
And I know there's obviously lowering the voting age, but is there other ways that we can incorporate young people's opinions in the way Australia operates? Are there any other ways that we can do that?
Look, I think that at this stage, I think, in my journey as youth representative, I'm seeing the importance of consultation with young people every single day. I speak with some young people who I feel as though, who seem to have been wanting to share something for quite a while and haven't felt like they've had the right avenue to just yet until the consultation, which is always really good to see. Well, it's disappointing that there aren't other avenues for these young people, but I'm glad that I'm providing a space for that and also being a conduit for, the voice of young people as youth representative. So I think there are a lot of other ways, but what I want to do is I want to get through my year as a youth consultant, as someone who is consulting with young people and providing advice to others on the issues that are facing young people. And then I'll put forward a collection of different recommendations that will suggest ways in which we can continue to amplify the youth voice in different areas.
Yeah, and as you move around Australia, going to all the different cities, speaking with all these young Australians, has any limitations, come up in discussion? Maybe if the voting age, for example, were to be lowered, are there some examples or limitations that may affect that? Is it, you mentioned maturity, is obviously that's huge when talking about politics, and is there any other limitations maybe you think, given it's voluntary, there may be some people that would use that the wrong way, especially at that younger age? Maybe they'd, when I think of voluntary voting, I think of the people that are well informed politically and they want to have a say for the nation. But would you see that could also be used the other way?
Some young people that I've spoken with do feel as though some of their peers might be apathetic about the process, and that young people are perhaps not ready. But then I hear from young people in the same conversations who feel as though by lowering the voting age, that will require young people to engage earlier. A condition that a lot of young people are suggesting to me is that we have compulsory civics education in both public and private schools from, in years 8, 9, 10, 11, to ensure that young people are prepared to be able to vote. But I think that we talk a lot about young people being disengaged with politics, and I think that we need to be quite clear about what we mean by that when we talk about young people being disengaged. So I think that there are plenty of young people in this country who don't want anything to do with partisan politics, who see, squabbles about, something between two politicians on television, or see maybe a ministerial change or a reshuffle or a leadership spill or something like that, and switch off. Because they don't see how that is relevant at all to their everyday lives. However, that does not mean that young people are disengaged from political issues. So I've had plenty of young people I've spoken with this year who couldn't give a toss, who's in cabinet right now, or a new internal policy implemented by a party, but care deeply about issues that are inherently political
Yeah.
and are passionate about enacting positive change in their communities and are actually doing that at a young age. I see young people who are doing that all the time. So when we say that young people are disengaged with politics, we have to be clear that there are so many young people in this country who are engaged with political issues and are engaged politically in their communities,
Yep.
engaged in improving in their communities and the lives of people in their community. I think there is a difference.
Yeah, there is.
And if you keep telling young people that they don't care, that their generation is apathetic across the board, then you're going to continue to push a particular cohort of young people away further and further and further and alienate them from the conversation. Whereas, as I explained before, young people are already participants in society. We're not waiting to experience the real world. We're living in the real world right now. We're experiencing things in a different way, but we are still active participants. What you do in your everyday life is going to have an impact on the people around you. Same with me in my life. And also your well-being and your success is going to have an impact on the community. The community needs to sort of, we need to realize that we are all interconnected in our community. Young people are not waiting to sort of make it or become a fully fledged member or participant. We already are. Yeah. And
I think you touched on it briefly there about, more understanding as we go through 7, 8, 9. So then it is that, it's not just, oh, we've got to vote now. It's kind of everyone's eager because they understand what it means.
Yep.
And I remember, I think it was in year 8, we had this subject called Australian curriculum. I think it's been phased out now, but in that class, part of it was learning about politics and how that all works and how it integrates within, different levels, so federal and state. And I thought that was a really big thing for me, and I wondered why it just didn't continue, because I felt myself coming out of it with a much greater understanding. Then it just faded out into years 9, 10, 11, and now in 12, there isn't much talk about politics in school, because it's all based on the subjects you choose. And if you don't choose one like legal studies or maybe politics, you don't have that background. And I think that's been big for me. And also another big thing in finding politics and news is the media. How do you feel like, social media has played a big role in my life, as I'm sure it has in many other young people's lives.
Yeah.
How do you feel that, social media, the way it portrays current issues and affairs, do you think it's over-exaggerated at times, and maybe that affects how young people, respond to news?
Yeah, it might be, well, I talk about the impact of social media on young people's lives with young people all the time, because young people want to talk about it. They raise it with me. A key sort of aspect of that, which is almost always raised in a consultation when we are talking about social media, is perhaps a bit of a lack of faith from the rest of the community about young people's ability to use social media responsibly. Cyberbullying and cyber safety are really important conversations to have. But while we're having those conversations, we need to recognise that young people use social media in really intelligent and innovative ways. Cyberbullying, for example, is not going to be posting on someone's wall saying, "I hate you," with like a angry emoticon. Like, that's not how cyberbullying works, even though I think that a lot of older people in the community feel like that's how it manifests. Young people had the capacity to use social media for incredible things and for enacting change in their communities. Activism online is something that lots of young people engage with. But the flip side to that is that young people are able to use social media and use the internet in negative ways and very nuanced, complex ways. In fact, I was talking with a group of young people in Melbourne last week about how the incredibly complex ways in which it is possible to cyberbully someone, and that the rest of the community perhaps doesn't realise how technologically savvy our generation is, because we have grown up with it. I got my first social media account, Facebook, when I was like 13 in 2008. I've had it, for all my teenage years and as a young adult. And that's the case with every other young person. I don't need to really elaborate further on that because we know it, but we need to recognize when we're having conversations with young people about social media, we need to do it in a way that is not patronizing, because we have grown up with it and it is an integral part of who we are, whether we like it or not. So when engaging with young people in that way, we need to have a conversation at that level. So in terms of when we're talking with young people about the negative effects of media and social media, those conversations need to be inclusive of young perspectives, because as young people we have perhaps a greater first-hand awareness and knowledge of those kinds of dangers. Assistance from older people who have the wisdom of older age is really important, but we can't be talked to about social media. We need to be included in a conversation with other generations.
And in your journey, obviously social media, it allows so many people to reach audiences that they may never have been able to speak with before. In your position, do you feel, social media maybe could be Instagram or Facebook has really helped you reach the masses?
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah, totally.
And how's it done that? I know it's crazy because in the good old days, which I can't really talk much about because I wasn't from those times, but you need someone's phone number or you need their address to go and speak to them face to face, or you need their phone number. But now social media, you just type in their name and you can get in touch with them straight away. Have you had people reaching out to you in that way through social media where maybe you didn't even have a consultation with their school or with them and they've reached out with, something of concern or something they'd like to add?
Oh, definitely. So many of the consultations this year were arranged via our Facebook page, Australian Youth Representative to the United Nations, or via my email account and the Youth Rep email account. Plenty of opportunities have arisen in that way. And we maintain quite an active social media presence because we have, beyond our consultations, we have other ways in which you can include your voice as a young person in the consultative process. So we have a Humans of New York style photo series of young people sharing their vision for their ideal Australia. We have an anonymous art project with young people responding to that idea of what their ideal Australia is in a creative way. So we had a few artworks and drawings. And then we also have our survey, which is available online. Young people, who've seen the work that we're doing online often reach out to me. I've received some written statements from some young people. I always love it when I'm handed a document by a young person who's actually taken the time to write something up, and I feel really privileged to be in a position where someone feels comfortable to share those thoughts with me. I really love that. And on social media as well, I get quite a lot of messages in our DMs on the Facebook page. From young people wanting to arrange a consultation or, had a question about the process, the Youth Rep process. Because, I'm just shepherding this program, through 2018. This program belongs to young Australians. There'll be a different person in my position next year and they'll have control of the Facebook page. And the profile photo will change and maybe the consultations will look slightly different. The program remains and it is for young people and it's run completely by young people.
And New York coming up in very soon, it's creeping up. Has the year gone super fast for you?
Yeah, it really has. As I said before, I'm on the run constantly. So last week I was in Wollongong and then Melbourne. Week before I was in Melbourne. Week before that I was in Sydney, Darwin, Alice Springs, Perth, Albany. So, when you're traveling so often, flying around several times a week, time really flies. Time really flies. I can't really believe that we've done 105 consultations so far this year.
That's a lot.
It is a lot of saying the same thing. But no, I like to mix things up, and what I love about this job is that I am working in a different environment every single day. So I'm engaging with new people. I'm in a different environment, and there's always a slightly different context every time. I haven't had any consultations that have been identical. Every single one's been different. So after every consultation, I just do a lot of typing and data entry about how the consultation went and what the top issues were that were raised. So I can keep track and so I can include that in my consultative process. But you asked about New York. Yes, New York is happening soonish. I still have a few places to visit. I've got 9 more destinations
How
on
many
my
more
list.
destinations are on Australia?
I'm doing some more. So I'm doing lots of more in Adelaide because this is where I'm from. Port Augusta, Coober Pedy, Rockhampton, Townsville, Cairns,
Gonna run out of fingers.
Hobart, Northern Tasmania, so Launceston, and Canberra again. So I've got a few more places to go to before I get to New York, but I will be there for 6 weeks, and I'll be leaving in early mid-September.
Exciting, very exciting. And you've got all that information, you have all those conversations, you get it all, you put it in a box.
Yep.
And it's got a couple of tips. What are the tips that from everything you've learnt, everything you've heard, that you'd give to, someone that's listening or someone that wants to know more about how their opinion can be heard? Maybe they think, I'm only 15 or 16, it's not my time yet.
Yeah.
What is something that you say to them from everything that you've listened and heard from so far?
Yeah, your time is now. Your time is now. We have so many unique challenges that face us as young people, and being a young person in Australia can be really hard for a few different reasons that I've outlined. And as young people, we are constantly underestimated. But proving older generations wrong, proving young people's detractors wrong, is a really powerful thing. I'd suggest to young people to find something that you're passionate about. Now, when I do the survey or the consultation with young people, and I get young people to pick issues they feel most passionately about, like pick the top issue that you care about. Which one really gets you fired up? I make clear to young people, you don't have to be incredibly passionate about every single issue.
Yeah.
If you are incredibly passionate about the environment and climate change, it doesn't mean that you don't care about mental health or about animal welfare or about defence or about immigration. It doesn't mean that you don't care about those things. But we need champions of particular causes. Find an issue that you feel particularly passionate about. It may take you some time to figure out what it is. It may be a collection of different things that you feel particularly passionate about. And then think about what you can bring to the table. What is something special and unique that you, as a young person and as an individual, can contribute? And then my suggestion would be to investigate the kind of organisations and support networks in your area to support those people, or even just at your school. There are so many small things you can do. You don't have to be a superhero in order to, make really positive change in your community. And everyone can do it. Everyone has the capacity to make positive change in their communities. Yeah.
That's a powerful
no
message.
Exception.
That some people it doesn't reach their ears, but it should. And I think that's something that's missing a lot. Sometimes we get drowned in the negativity of what is happening, and there's so many positives with what's going on.
Yep.
The world's changing, things are getting dramatically better. But yeah, I love that message. That's just one that I hope to spread around as a leader, and as I hope that other people can spread around as well.
Cool.
And as we come to my personal favourite bit of the podcast, what are you most obsessed with at the moment? It could be anything. It could be, there's this red pen that just feels so good when you write on the page. It could be, you said you've been on the plane a fair bit recently.
Yeah.
It could be a new series that, you've just clung on to. Bit of food, airplane food, you really like the microwave steak. That could be something.
Oh, gross. No. Look, I like it when an airline provides you with a meal. That's always good.
That's class.
But look, I've flown Qantas a few times this year, and I'm a huge fan of Veep. And I'm always excited when I fly Qantas because they've got all 5 seasons of Veep on the seatback entertainment. So I love watching that. I think Julia Louis-Dreyfus is bloody hilarious. So I love watching Veep, and I have watched it several times. It's just really, really funny. I do have Netflix and I have Stan. My friend Ella is letting me use her Stan account this year as a way of helping me out as a friend, which is very nice. Thank you, Ella.
True legend.
Yes. So I loved the first season of Queer Eye when it came out earlier in the year. All my family are obsessed. I think my parents cried through several of the episodes. So we've been watching that a lot. And season 2 came out just a couple of weeks ago. I've only watched a couple of episodes, but I'm looking forward to watching the rest. And I'm just hanging out for House of Cards to come out. I've got no idea when the next season comes out, where Robin Wright is taking center stage in that. Really looking forward to it. Do you watch House of Cards?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Really?
I've heard some great raving reviews about it.
Pretty great. It's
Yeah.
pretty great. Well, what are you watching right now?
I'm not watching anything at the moment. I haven't found myself watching a TV series since about last year. I just, you know, when you go on YouTube and you go into the recommended section, and then you click on one, you click on another, and next thing you know, 2 hours have passed and you're watching Gordon Ramsay yell at someone because they.
Oh my gosh, I do that all the time. Yeah.
Those videos, I love them. When they go in, it's like, you just didn't clean this yesterday, and he just goes just full mad.
Look, my procrastination game has been strong this year at times because I just have a lot of work to do all the time. You know, who can blame me?
2 hours there. It's
not
much, you know.
Kitchen Nightmares on YouTube.
Yes.
I just watch it on repeat. My favorite, I think, is when they make a grilled Caesar salad and they grill the lettuce. Can you think of anything more disgusting than grilled lettuce?
I haven't seen that episode, but
that
I
is
might have to
foul.
give that a search. What is that?
It is so bad. Lettuce. Yeah, so they had like a cos lettuce, like the whole thing. They didn't wash it or anything. And they put it on the grill and it had grill marks on it, like the actual leaf.
Nah,
can you imagine how bad burnt lettuce would?
That's a big no.
Oh, so bad.
That'll cook through. Yeah, it's like, how'd you like your lettuce? Medium rare?
Gross.
But yeah, Hotel Hell and Kitchen Nightmares.
That's good as well. Hotel Hell. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. Following your story. So how does anyone watching keep up to date with everything you're doing in the lead up to you jetting off to New York City?
Yes, good question. I'm glad you asked it. Okay, so we have a Facebook page, Australian Youth Representative to the United Nations, or just UN Youth Rep. You should be able to find us. So go give us a like, and you can check out, you know, the things that we're doing. If you have Twitter, if you're a Twitter person, you can follow me at Amos Washington 9. So you can check me out there. And if you feel inclined to have your voice heard after this, and you're under the age of 26, after watching this podcast, you can actually fill out our survey. It's just tinyurl.com/YouthRepSurvey 2018. That's 2018. But all those details are on our Facebook page, and we have a little video at the top that's pinned to the Facebook page, and you can watch that and get an overview of what we do in the program. So check that out. Check out what we do, because we're always looking for more consultations and more champions of young people. So go check it out.
Definitely. Love what you're doing, and love the message that you're preaching. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Austin.
Today.
Had a great time.
Really appreciate it. So this has been episode number 6 of Influence, and it was an absolute cracker of an episode. Feel free to keep up to date with anything Influence if you have a look at our other social media pages. But apart from that, thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Ciao.
Come on,